Imagine waking up one morning to find your entire town silent. No merchants opening their stalls, no children playing in the streets, no neighbors greeting each other, just the wind, moving through empty homes. And the distant echo of something you can't quite name. This was not a scene from fiction. This was reality during the plague that wiped out half of humanity. A catastrophe so massive that some historians believe it changed the course of human civilization more than any war, empire, or invention. And today, we're going to explore how it unfolded. It all began quietly. There was no explosion, no invasion, no warning. Just a small cough somewhere in a corner of the world. A sound so ordinary that it vanished into the everyday noise of life. But within that single moment lay the spark of an unimaginable disaster. A disease was emerging, one that would cross borders, oceans, and kingdoms faster than the world could comprehend. At first, the early signs were subtle. A remote village reported an unusual fever. Another settlement spoke of people collapsing suddenly. Isolated rumors drifted through the trade routes, carried by frightened travelers. Yet leaders dismissed these warnings as exaggerations, blaming superstition or poor hygiene. After all, small outbreaks happened every year. Why would this one be any different? But this time, everything was different. The disease spread silently at first, moving from household to household, then from town to town. Entire families would fall ill overnight. By the time the sun rose, neighbors who had shared meals only days before were burying their dead in makeshift pits. Couriers sent to deliver urgent messages never returned. Villagers vanished along forest paths. And still, the merchants and caravans continued their journeys, unknowingly carrying the plague with them. Trade, the lifeblood of the ancient world, became the plague's greatest weapon. Ships left bustling ports filled with cargo, unaware that rats, insects, or infected crew members aboard would soon deliver a death sentence to entire coastal cities. Caravan routes stretched across continents, connecting distant kingdoms, turning every stop into another outbreak point. By the time rulers finally grasped the scale of the crisis, the plague had already become unstoppable. Entire regions fell within weeks. Markets stood empty, soldiers abandoned their posts as illness swept through barracks. People prayed, shouted, screamed, hid, ran, fought, and pleaded for answers. But nothing stopped the advance of the disease. Chroniclers describe scenes that defy imagination. Streets so full of bodies that carts couldn't pass. Church bells ringing constantly until the bell ringers themselves collapsed. Dogs wandering through deserted neighborhoods, confused and hungry. Survivors wrote of neighbors dying so quickly that households went from laughter to silence within a single day. Doctors experimented desperately with treatments, burning herbs, draining blood, chanting prayers, quarantining the sick, but none of these efforts mattered. The plague was ruthless. It struck the young and healthy with the same fury as the old and frail. It did not respect wealth, status, or power. Kings, scholars, farmers, soldiers, children, everyone was vulnerable. In many cities, half the population disappeared within months. Farmers abandoned their fields. Mills stopped turning. Ships remained docked because entire crews were gone. Without workers, food supplies dwindled. Law and order collapsed. Some villages were left with only a handful of survivors, and some disappeared entirely, swallowed by forests or reclaimed by the earth. There were chilling accounts from sailors who reached foreign ports expecting trade and conversation, only to find silence. No guards, no merchants, no officials. Just empty docks and abandoned marketplaces. They would walk deeper into the city and find homes with plates still on the tables, toys scattered across floors, doors left open as if their owners had simply walked away. But they hadn't walked away. They had fallen where they stood. In the countryside, things were no better. Families fled to remote areas believing that isolation would save them. But in their panic, they brought the disease with them. Entire regions became graveyards with no living witnesses left to record what happened. Religious leaders preached repentance. Some people blamed the stars. Others believed the world was ending. Many turned against one another, seeking explanations in fear, superstition, and desperation. Yet there were also moments of incredible bravery, people who stayed behind to care for the dying, even knowing they might be next. And then, just when humanity was at the brink of collapse, the plague's fury began to fade. It wasn't sudden. It didn't disappear overnight. But slowly, the outbreaks became smaller. Communities developed resistance without knowing it. Some towns had isolated themselves just long enough to survive. Trade routes became quieter. Travel decreased, and gradually, the devastating tide finally receded. But the world it left behind was unrecognizable. Entire kingdoms had crumbled, political structures collapsed with fewer workers, economies were transformed, wages increased, land ownership shifted, cultures evolved or vanished altogether. Entire generations grew up in the shadow of the plague, shaped by loss and survival. The catastrophe created openings for new ideas, new systems, new beliefs. In some ways, it reshaped humanity for centuries to come. And yet, even as life slowly returned, fear lingered. The The survivors knew that the plague had not been a simple illness. It had been a force of nature, powerful enough to scar civilizations permanently. Scholars still debate how it spread so quickly. Some argue it was global trade. Others blame climate shifts, famine, or war. A few speculate that it began from a mutation so sudden and aggressive that the world had no defense. Whatever the cause, humanity learned a painful lesson. One microscopic organism can change the world more profoundly than any army or empire. And though centuries have passed, one chilling fact remains: it happened once. And history has a way of repeating itself. If you found this story fascinating and want to explore more forgotten catastrophes, mysteries, and turning points that shaped the world, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more history deep dives, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Your support helps us bring more hidden stories to life. Humanity survived the plague that wiped out half its people, but the question history leaves us with is simple and terrifying. Could we survive the next one?